And I invite to the stage our next panel discussion, which is going to be about the utility tokens, if utility tokens are dead or there is a future for them. Please meet Moti Pierre, the CEO of Blonde 2.0, one of the leading PR agencies, with his panelists to the stage. Moti.
Hello, everybody. My panelists, you're welcome to come in. It's very, very good to be here. Okay, so I will start by introducing myself, and then I will allow my esteemed panelists to introduce themselves as well. So, as I said, my name is Moti Pierre, and I'm the co-CEO of Plan 2.0. We are a global-facing PR agency, exists for 13 years, since 2006. We have a unit called Blockchain, dedicated to the needs of crypto and blockchain companies. We working with companies such as Bancor and IOTA, and StatusIM, and Waves, and Black Moon, and Siren Labs, and PumaPay. I'm very happy to say that during the heyday of crypto, we helped raise over $2 billion in ICOs and STOs. Obviously, that was during the heyday of crypto. We're currently working with about 50 crypto and blockchain projects, and we help them to publicize their name, brand, product around the world. So now I will allow the panelists to introduce themselves, about 3 minutes each. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. And thanks to organizer for having me here. My name is Christian, and I'm a researcher at the Technical University of Sofia, researching and applying blockchain technologies in different fields, but two of them are of interest to the panelists and the audience today. OS University. OS University is a credentials wallet for learners and professionals to store data about their accomplishments and achievements beyond the institutional and national borders that they have acquired these accomplishments at. What is interesting was that it was one of the first academic research initiatives to basically crowdfund itself by issuing a utility token. Not only in Bulgaria, I believe in Bulgaria is the only one, but generally around the world, it was one of the first such research crowdfunded crypto projects. And apart from that, these days, I'm also the director of the National Student House, a agency beneath the Ministry of Education. So I suppose I'm representing a sort of a governmental point of view on utility tokens and their applications in the future.
Thank you, Christian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paulo. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Before kind of starting with cryptocurrencies and blockchain, I was in the financial industry. I was running one of the biggest fintech companies in Eastern Europe called Manexi. After selling it, I started my blockchain startup, basically using blockchain for supply chain verification. I was also project lead for the non-financial applications of blockchain as the World Economic Forum. And at the moment, I'm looking at the applications of blockchain for supply chains and traceability in the space projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Walter.
Hello, my name is Walter Komarek. Actually, I'm an entrepreneur from the old school. Was actually in telecom industry, sold my shares of my Mobilecom operator 2016. Since 2015, I am in blockchain and crypto. We had a very successful ICO with Inc. 2018. We actually also participated in an ICO of DACC, which was a project out of China too. And now I'm also in mining business the last 1.5 years, mining Bitcoin and altcoins.
Thank you, Walter. The talented Yael.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Moti. Thank you, guys. Who's hungry? So just 1 more hour to lunch. Try to make it exciting for you guys. I'm Yael Tamar from Solidblock. I'm the partner and the chief marketing officer. And our goal is to democratize access to real estate assets and to fuel the growth of real estate market through facilitating a healthy secondary market for asset-backed securities. I've had a career in marketing for public companies, for private companies in the financial space and entrepreneur endeavors as well. And now I'm here because I believe that the world is moving towards digital securities. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So, as you may know, we had a very exciting couple of years. 2017 and 2018 were very exciting to whoever, was interested in crypto and blockchain. I think I said that during one of our panels, Walter, but I received a meme, a funny meme, in which you can see Al Pacino on top and on the bottom. On top, he's seen from a scene in Scarface, sitting in the jacuzzi, smoking a cigar, have like a small mountain of Coke next to him, seen very, very happy. And then on the bottom, and that was, a Bitcoin maximalist during December of 2017. And then on the bottom, you can see the same Al Pacino doing the dishes, seen from the beginning of the movie, and that was a Bitcoin maximalist during December of 2018. So we had sort of a very exciting ride, and we are reading everywhere that utility tokens are pretty much dead, ICOs are pretty much dead. Now my question is for you. Do you think that utility tokens are pretty much dead, and what is it that we need to do in order to revive them?
My point of view is that the hype around the utility token as an investment vehicle is indeed dead. The idea of a utility token is to spend and exercise its utility. So if you're not spending, you are actually undermining the utility, the value of the token. So investment-wise, I don't think utility tokens, and I intentionally want to make a discussion, are the best and the smartest investment for anyone to make. Because the idea is, don't keep it, spend it, because you see the point of having it in order to get a good or service in exchange, in return. And as long as we continue to focus on the investment side rather than on the spending side, we are on the wrong side of history. Historically, social money, local money are basically utility tokens that we have today. You have, for example, before blockchain, the Bristol pound. The Bristol pound is social money where local shops and bars in Bristol in the UK, they accept this pound and you can have it, so you can spend it in these shops and in these bars. Why don't get a beer but keep your pound in your safe? That's not a wise solution. It should not be an investment. It should be a spending vehicle. So yeah, definitely future based on the history behind social and local money for the utility token, but not necessarily as an investment mean.
Thank you. Pablo, what do you think?
Well, I agree at large. I believe that initially we got the concept of utility tokens wrong. So what I mean is that they have a bright future, but they shouldn't be assets which can be tradable. I believe that utility token can change the economic models behind the security tokens. If you look at this as a multi-level approach, when you have a security token which is basically tradable and the price can go up or down as a security, and then you have utility tokens behind working and creating a new model of economics. And that's not something that we've seen happening. I mean, most of the utility tokens introduced to the market that don't have a real utility. And also, they were open to market speculations, which I believe they shouldn't be. So if you look at the utility token from a new angle, where the utility will be created by applying this mechanism to create a new economic model, so we can have more transparency and feed information within the economic system to the security token, so we can have more transparency in terms of the price of the security, then it will be really helpful. Or if you can optimize processes within organizational, multi-organizational approach, that would be helpful. But as soon as we open it to the speculation, I believe that when the problems start with the utility tokens. I'm not saying that utility token price can grow. I believe there are certain cases where it can go up, but I don't think that should be major application for utility tokens.
Thank you.
Can I weigh in real quick?
Actually wants to move forward. So many politicians in our country and in the United States tend to blame the media for their shortcomings. Yael, Do you think that the media had a role in the demise of utility token in any way?
No.
Not at all?
And I will elaborate on that. So at the end of the day, you cannot push products down people's throats. Like the market decides which product to buy and which product not to buy. And there are two types of products that fail. One is a product that has no utility and people don't find the use for it. Remember Google Glass, other things. And there are other products that are superseded by better things. For example, Blu-ray was superseded by, I would say, Netflix. So, or DVDs and then Netflix. So nobody goes out to buy DVDs anymore. Anybody here goes to buy DVDs? No, because now you have better things. So in my view, the media is basically reporting what's happening. There's obviously, sometimes in the market you do see mass hysteria when people just say, wow, I'm not going to touch this until we find out what's happening. I don't think that's what happened here. I think the media just basically kind of is as clueless as everybody else is, but at the end of the day, the market doesn't want what it doesn't want.
Thank you. Walter, what do you think? Do you think that the media had a role?
Actually, coming back to the main topic, yes, about the future of a utility token, there is actually a life for both, for sure. There's the utility token on the one side, there's the security token on the other side, or whatever asset-backed token on the other side. In any way, I can give you an example out of the practice. So we have in our mining company, we have both. We have a security token, which is an STO permitted and fully permitted by the Austrian government and financial control. And we have a utility token also. Both have their right and both are living next to each other. The security token, as the name says more or less, also gives you not only security, it gives you also kind of profits, right? In the moment when a token gives you profits, it has to be a security token. So you cannot even imagine maybe that a real estate company or real estate cannot be a utility token in any case, right? On the other side, you have utility tokens, which gives you just simply a service where you don't have any profits out of it, right? So that's the two tokens which are living next to each other in the future, for sure. The security token was also kind of way out during the bear market time when everybody was actually looking for new ways how to attract investors and to find a new way, and everybody found his, let me say, future in a security token because there was nobody really investing into a utility token over the last couple of months. Is that the case that you attract venturers easier with a security token? It's not yet proven in a way, right? I mean, we actually, with our security token, which was issued as the first one in European Union in January 2019 this year, we did not yet have any success with finding easily investors or venture capitalists to invest into the security token. On the other side, with the utility token, we still have attraction, and there are still people buying our utility token also. I think the future is both of them.
Okay, very interesting. So Christian, you know, many people who say that the utility token is dead argue that the viable replacement is actually the STO, and that's actually the future. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's good to bring down the discussion on a exemplar level, and I will do exactly this. Let's see which one is better in an actual case. As I said, me being a director of an institution, it is a real estate, the National Student House, located at the center of Sofia, a great place for cultural and educational events that we can all attend. But we are in an urgent need of funding. So what can I do to gather funding in an innovative way? Because obviously we're struggling to get a governmental one. I can tokenize the asset because it is a real estate. So I can create tokenized asset-backed bonds that I can issue as a director of the institution, so I can gather funding to rebuild it because it is in an urgent need of rebuilding. So I can do an STO. On the other side, I can do a utility token and say everyone that buys this token without expectations of any higher return would be able to spend it later to buy a ticket for an event, for an educational conference, workshop, or a concert at the student house. So I will gather the money in order to rebuild the institution, but the people who invest now will be able to utilize this particular offering that I'm proposing. So which scenario is more, I would say, realistic? That I'm being able to tomorrow issue a security asset-backed token, or that I can issue a utility token that provides the users with the opportunity to go to a concert and spend what they have gathered. I believe the second one. I believe utility tokens are easier to issue. They are easier to make sense for people who own them. I can do this with that. And they are more regulatory free and I would say more regulatory lovable. So I definitely believe that there is the future, but again, if we separate the actual use of these tokens and then we speak of hypothetical investment, which is where STOs are stronger and they will have the future in that regard.
But the question is which one solves the actual problem, not the question of which one is easier to issue.
I believe I will get the funding, in my case, by issuing a utility token because people will make sense how they can exercise. They buy the token, they can go to the concert for free by paying with the token. I believe it would be harder for me to achieve my goal to get the funding if I want to create the asset-backed tokenized security because regulators would not allow me as a director of an institution, governmental or private, to just bypass all the regulations and issue an STO.
Well, as we have seen in the previous years, getting money was easy, but actually executing was hard. So I think that getting money shouldn't be put first, and my personal opinion, humble. And I believe the two things we have to understand. One, security token is only working with very limited legal framework. So we always capped. It's not a universal framework. We don't have it. We might get it in the future. That would be nice to have. We don't have it right now. That's a big limitation in terms of the security tokens issuance. Second, utility token is not a product. I don't think that there are many products which are utility tokens. There can be, as in the case, and I believe it's good. But there will be utility token hidden behind the scenes. Users don't have to see them. Like, really, why do we have to see the utility token? It's just a blood of a product which runs and it works. And then security tokens is something that you can trade and then you can manipulate with the price if you wish, if it's legal. And that's all.
And to your example, every single theater in the world is doing what you're doing. It's called the seasonal pass. So.
I said if I want to be an innovator because I believe in 20 years the managers of the theaters would be the ones that are in this stage and they will use this option as a way to interact with like-minded individuals. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Pablo, this question is for you. Many people are actually saying that the new kid on the block, the IEO, the initial exchange offering, is actually the real viable solution. What is your opinion of that?
Well, for those who don't know how it works, it's basically introducing token to exchange and then people buying it from exchange rather than to selling it during the token generation event in ICO. In my opinion, it's a different approach to introducing token to the market. If it's legally more viable or not, it's probably case by case because all tokens are different, so I can't really say overall. It's an interesting example of how you can actually raise money. It's very different from the ICO. It also has its own limitations because usually you limit it with the KYC of people conducted at a particular exchange. It's more difficult to change ownership and what happens if they do change ownership. So there are a few questions which are not answered. And maybe first step is more defined and maybe more legally feasible than those of ICO, but then the consecutive steps are less defined and more vague, and it's very difficult to see what's going to happen with this model as tokens get traded.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not an expert specifically in this offering. However, from what I've seen in the utility token space, the majority of tokens that are succeeding right now and keeping their value are tokens that are used in exchanges, because that's probably the only financial product that's blockchain-based that's succeeded in the last year. And that was exchanges and trading, anything related to payments, trading, and exchanges. So if exchange can issue tokens through a new vehicle that's better than what we've seen with the ICO, then all the power to it. So,
Definitely
go
better for
ahead.
consumer.
Okay. Definitely, it's to say one thing very, very important. There is no bad tokens and no bad utility tokens. There's only bad projects behind it, or bad managed projects, or bad managers or CEOs which are making a bad token out of that. Yeah? So, what is an IO actually also for somehow? I mean, of course, obviously it's possible to trade it then and so on and so on, but at least an exchange, if it's a serious exchange, is doing a KYC on that project. And I saw that in the last couple of weeks, we were accompanying a project, actually it went to an IO, and this was done via the exchange KuCoin, and they made such a heavy due diligence process on that project, on that coin, on that team also. They actually wanted to visit the office, they wanted to visit them, to meet those people. Actually, there was a person designated to go into that deeply. So that it's like an emission through a stock exchange, actually, right? It's similar like that. So there is more control or more, let me say, also security behind that when an IO is done, that the project has at least a bit more sustainability.
Thank you. All right, next question is as follows. As I told you, everybody, at the beginning of this panel, my company alone helped raise over $2 billion in ICOs. Obviously, much more money was raised. So where are the product? Where is the actual utility? I can tell you from my experience that I can single out one company called Siren Labs from Tel Aviv, and they created the first blockchain phone. And that's an actual utility. It's a secured wallet and all that, but only just a couple of thousand of units were sold. So where is the utility from all those billions that were raised? Yeah, let's start with you.
So many investors who I've met in the last 2-3 years have said, we're only investing in platform projects, we're only investing in deep tech. And it turns out that they're right. So the projects that actually did build, let's say, exchanges or built phones or built platforms like Bancor, like Huobi, like HDAC, all of these companies are actually producing either projects or products. So these companies can be counted on the fingers of my hand, that's true. But we do see some utility token projects that succeeded. That said, those projects could have probably been funded in other ways, rather than utility token, because now on top of...
So it was a combination of an ICO and conventional funds?
Either that or just conventional funds, because now on top of having to produce the phone, they have to worry about keeping up with the market, doing market making, and making sure their token is up at the early stage. They haven't even, they haven't even released their product. They have a few months ago. So, all of these companies could have existed without the utility token, essentially. Maybe Bancor is an exception because they are doing, let's say, a few interesting projects in Africa where they're doing community coins. So this is probably one of maybe 2 or 3 examples in the whole market where I can say this is truly a utility token and it has a future utility.
I'm happy to say that I worked with both Bancor and HDAC. Walter, do you have any examples of where's all that money? Where's the utility in all those projects?
There is, of course, good examples and bad examples.
Just mention a couple of good examples.
I mean, a good example of utility token, you mean? Yeah? I'm pretty sure that the project where I was co-founding Inc. is a good example, and I have to mention that because we are really permanently releasing stage by stage the project and the product, actually. Yeah? I also joined, unfortunately, a project which did not do so, so I insisted the last couple of months to take me off from the advisory board list of this project because I did not see any progress over the last couple of 6 months already. And if there is no progress, then I understand what happened with the money, right? I don't want to be involved and associated with such a project. And there is also, I don't see any actually at the moment, any real good example for a security token who raised a lot of money. Does anybody know in the audience a security token which raised a lot of money?
So my 2 cents is basically, I don't know if you ever read white papers from companies who issue utility tokens. So if you did, there are two things that kind of would strike you. First one, there is definitely token mechanics described well in every single of them, but in terms of token economics, it's not very well defined. What I mean by token economics is how a token is interacting with an organization, within the actors from inside the organization, from outside the organization, how does it help it? So if we actually look at the blockchain and see how blockchain can reduce the complexity within different organizations by mapping different actors and kind of embedding them and doing many interesting things. So that haven't been done. So blockchain was used by very specific use cases which were not very well implemented. So if we can actually unleash the power of blockchain and try to use it to map the organizations and improve the business processes, I believe that we will have a new wave of utility tokens on the market.
Short mark to that, actually, may I mention something? Also, exchanges, at least those which call themselves as the real serious exchanges, let's mention, for example, Bitfinex, yeah? They introduced a new platform called Kleros, maybe you heard about that, yeah? And this platform is like built for euros, which are jury, which votes on the project actually, and which goes quite deeply into the project itself. So it asks you a lot of questions. It challenges also what the team did, what the project did, how you raised your money, KYC questions, and so on and so on, before you get listed on that exchange. So that's also quite a good filter for the token buyers probably in the future, and which want to deal with that.
Thank you. Christian, I'm going to ask you the same question, and then I'm going to ask the crowd to come up with a couple of questions for the panelists. Where is the utility in all those utility tokens? Any successful project that we can actually look at today and say, okay, that was worthwhile?
I believe the most successful utility tokens will come with the adoption of the technology and this approach from the big players in the key industries, the corporations, if you may, because they are the ones who have gathered the funding to create their products. In many cases, their products are market leaders. So their goal, as we discussed, is not to raise the funds. Because you asked me what if I want to do this story I explained, what is my goal? My goal is to raise the funds, and it will be easier this way than the other. But the big players already have the funding, they already have the market, and they can focus on creating tokens to add value to their customers. For example, Facebook adopting a utility token to add an additional layer of services, or instead of putting a paywall for additional services.
Is it actually happening, or they're working on it?
Not necessarily a lot of speculations, but I'm giving an example of how a mass adoption may happen, because if Facebook implements such token to add an additional layer of services to users instead of a paywall, then this would be followed by other players, and Facebook is definitely not worried about gathering the community around its platform and around its product. The same way I can give an example with GitHub. If GitHub decides to create a Git token to, I would say, incentivize software developers to do commits or to work on documents, because nobody likes to do documentation for software products, then this would be followed by other software companies, and they will create such utility tokens. But GitHub would be the successful one to lead the others, because they already have the product and the community around it, while other companies, smaller startups, they're struggling to create this, and the focus shifts from the adoption and the distribution of the token to the funding of the project, and then the entire story with the investment side. Oh, we want to make it hotter and sexier because we want to raise the funds.
Well,
no,
may I disagree with you actually, because I believe there's, what we have to understand, two things. First of all, if you talk about corporations, I believe that they can use this model to cannibalize the market. So are they really interested in innovating and disrupting the economic models? I don't think so. I mean, Facebook, okay. But I believe that they will be using the token to do their own thing and make money, not to disrupt the market. And if you want to disrupt the market, it should come from the startup. And that's an issue when you start dealing with corporates. I mean, our business, we did a lot of work with big companies. And the problem is, as soon as you do, they want you to do specific thing. It's not necessarily innovating. They want to do incremental things so they can have more shareholder value delivered within a year. They don't want to disrupt. They have shareholders, they have something to lose. And so the startups should be doing it and not the Facebook.
All right, let's go to the audience. Anyone wants to ask a question?
Hey, my name is Jonathan Goldman. I'm a crypto trader, an investor, and the last year I founded Sunlight Green, which is actually a medical cannabis company in Portugal. But I have a question to Walter. You mentioned IEO before, and when we look at the traditional IPO for the traditional companies, they go to investment banks. We do due diligence on the company, because the company want to offer to the inexperienced public. So they go to the investment bank do the due diligence, and then they take some kind of responsibility, they take full responsibility on the IPO for the company. And now we see a new evolution in the ICOs, which was the Wild Wild West, and now it's going through the exchanges, what we call IEO. Now, as you said, they do the due diligence on the company, and they check, and they don't accept all of them. But is there any responsibility those exchanges take in front of the public, in front of the investors, the traders?
Yeah, that's a very good question what you're asking. And also here we have to diversify which exchange is issuing an IEO or doing an IEO. Is it an exchange which is really one of those, let me say, great exchanges which are at least trying to have most of their volume organically and looking for their image? Or is it just exchange which pumped themselves up to the top 20, top 30? You know how that works as a trader, right? And so the exchange which looks for their own future and their own image, I would say, at least the one which I work with, they're doing an extremely proper job, and they're very reluctant which project they take on. And I didn't, for example, manage yet to get a project on Bittrex. It's just extremely difficult because they are doing such a strong DD, due diligence, on the project itself, on the owners, on the founders, on the money they raised, that unfortunately until now we didn't manage to get the project into it. Does that answer your question, or do you have any additional question on that?
Part of it, yeah, because regarding the DD, as you said, but if they choose a project on their platform, they take some kind of responsibility, or there isn't any responsibility from their side?
Yeah, the responsibility more relies to their own quality of exchange. So if Bittrex, Binance, Bitfinex, or KuCoin, in my personal subjective opinion, doing and deciding to take a project on, then I think it means at least they did a proper DD, and the project has a good chance to be delivered to the market. I mean, there's never a guarantee. Let me put it like that: in the traditional world of investments into projects like IPOs, like venture capitalists are doing, right? You have also no guarantee that the project will fly in the end of the day. So, but at least it's another filter which gives you a bit more security to go for it.
Thank you. Any additional question from the crowd? Over there.
Hi. So here's the question. If we think about the traditional economy, being simplistic, there are two kinds of value. There's money and there is capital, right? That's what's always happened. But then Bitcoin comes in 2008 and basically creates a system where money and capital are merged, right? And then what's used as money, it's also gives a return to whoever contributes to that community, and substituting margin economies for incentive economies, right? I even see the regulators going that path, like the example of Malta creating the virtual financial asset, ESMA, the FCA, saying that if something is not a security, it has to be a new instrument. Aren't we missing the point by separating security tokens and utility tokens? Precisely, the incentive economics behind blockchain when you merge both?
I can take that. That's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, are we missing the point? What is the point exactly? Is the point to create innovation for the sake of innovation, or is the point to solve real people's problems? Is the point to make a world a better place? Is the point to give opportunities to all of us in this room to get happier and richer, right? So what is the point of the financial market? What do you think?
Hear me? That's precisely it. So, I see one of the great things I see about blockchain is basically merging both so that the people who enjoy the services are actually the people who get the return from the services.
Okay.
So they get more engaged and they actually get everything from the service, not just the service, but also the return of what they are contributing to the service.
I understand. So you're talking about a return, and you're talking two things. You're talking about financial return, and you're talking about people seeing products that they want created. And that's investment vehicle, right? The people investing in startups, people investing in technology. And utility token was potentially a good mechanism for that. Security token is a totally different mechanism, is a tool for creating value and for growth. And utility token even has a definition that precludes that growth. Utility token is supposed to be for ticket sales, right? So security token is I'm investing in something that's tied to a base asset that's going to have a market of its own, but it's kind of created to the base asset, right? It's kind of tied to the base asset. So, but I'm expecting this market to grow. So I'm going to invest in a security token because I'm expecting growth. I'm expecting to get paid. I'm expecting to get profit. With utility token, the underlying concept is you're not supposed to expect to get profit from this. You're supposed to enjoy the product. You're supposed to participate in the innovation. And that was the premise of blockchain. Now we're going to see these amazing products and projects going on. And Moti asked the question, where are these products? We have a phone, we have a bunch of exchanges, we have a bunch of protocols and things like that. So we're not seeing flying cars and, well, there are rockets going to the moon apparently. Pablo can tell you more about that. So we are seeing some limited cool things happening, right? But at the end of the day, I think that there is a space for utility tokens specifically for that reason, because it did give a promise to all of us that we're going to be the ones driving the innovation and driving the force. However, because of the poor execution and people trying to profit from this trend kind of dropped down, and we're now singing eulogies to the utility token. But if all of us say we still want the tool, let's revive it in a different form, we can probably succeed and create, make it under a different name, innovation token. Thank you.
Probably it's the first time in the history where innovation was able to fund itself, which is a very interesting example. The problem is how kind of investors are protected. And obviously, as even with VCs, there is kind of very limited protection, but with ICOs it was too much. There was like almost zero safeguards, and that is my personal problem. I would be for any tokens, it's okay, but we need some shareholder protection in place. That's the biggest problem in my opinion. And actually, I don't really want to kill this self-funding innovation if it can succeed, because the problem is if you really kind of move towards the securities all the way and you don't create a new asset class, as we potentially can with STOs. So what we have now is most of us gave up and said, well, we gave up with utility tokens, we go all the way to securities, normal securities. And I believe that's wrong. We should think about creating a new security class which would be very different or quite different from the securities that we have right now, and which will be kind of promoting this self-funded innovation. And if we can create that and we have international framework for that, then our world will be more successful.
Last word for you, and then I will ask my final question.
I wanted to answer because your question brought us to the big conversation, the big ideas. I believe the point is that utility tokens are a great way to monetize social capital, something that we're not speaking too much, too often. Social capital is a bit trickier to monetize, obviously, because it's within the networks that we cooperate in, or the networks themselves. But it's not about merging the capital with the money, it's about monetizing the capital. So an example, in the area of academic publishing I'm working in as a researcher, you work for months in teams of great minds, and then you give out your paper, your work, your research to a big publisher who just monetize it, and you win nothing apart from boosting your ego, right? So there is another way to monetize the capital you have within the network that is creating the value. While if you add within the academic publishing industry a token, the publisher at the cost of zero would be able to give out the tokens to reward and incentivize the researchers, and as long as there is an agreement within the research community for this token to be leveraged in terms of utility, let's say access to workshops, seminars, books, and other services of interest to a professor or a young researcher, then the capital that has been created, the social capital, can be monetized through the token. So it's not an actual investment as we have been thinking of an investment, but it's a new type of investment. And it's an investment in what you create.
I believe you touched a very interesting point here. You basically said that there are two types of tokens. Potentially, there are kind of technical tokens that they don't interact with the social part, and they kind of just function somewhere within the system, the piece of code. And there is something which becomes a social system in itself, and that's what you described. So probably there are two types of utility tokens, and the ones with the social systems, they're probably more difficult to implement, but more interesting as well, because they're changing.
Change making.
Yeah, they have a more potential impact to change the society, to change the economy. There will be resistance to change, because technological tokens, you don't see them, so there is maybe less resistance from the social part, from the actors, but yeah, thank you.
There's one great example of this project with Moti knows about called Vegan Coin, and as a vegan amazing project, and actually an ICO that's doing really well. And the reason why is because vegans all over the world, which is a tight-knit community yet global of 300 to 500 million people, are investing into it, into the future. And one of the biggest goals is to actually promote healthy, ecological, sustainable lifestyle, and people are buying into it. It makes sense to them because they think that we're going to have a bigger purchasing power and capitalizing on the social capital of the community. So, but these projects are far in between. So if we find more, then we'll have more utility tokens.
Hopefully we will. All right, so time flies when you're having fun, and we need to conclude our session, but I will end up with my usual question, as I always do. I ask all my panelists always, where do you see Bitcoin at the end of the year? So, Yael, where do you see Bitcoin on December 31st of 2019?
The same place where it is right now.
5,000. Walter?
10.
10,000. Good for you. Pablo?
Well, I believe we'll get Bitcoin to the moon. That's what we're doing with our project. Not 2019, but 2020. We're actually flying Bitcoin to the moon. I don't know about
where do you
the
see it in
price.
2020?
Sorry?
Where do you see it in 2020?
2020, price-wise, probably it will go up maybe 3-4 times.
Amazing. Christian?
Bitcoin is great where it is. It was great where it was at $5. The idea is to be in the pockets of more of us. And that's our, I believe, mission. And the audience, of course, to be evangelists of this community and eat our dog food. Because, who else would help make this apart from the people who create these currencies and these blockchain projects? So we need not to focus on the value and where it will be, but we need to focus on where, in which pockets it would be Bitcoin. So hopefully,
you should be a lawyer.
More people.
Or a politician.
So I can tell you that my experience shows that everybody is always wrong. My prediction is 10K at the end of the year. Hopefully it will get there. It will help, you know, the entire sector. I want to thank all of you, Yael, Walter, Pablo, and Christian. Thank you so much for sitting in.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, hello guys. Okay, while they're doing that picture, you're welcome to go outside for lunch. And the lunch finishes at 2:30, and then you're welcome to go back here sharp at 2:30 for an